illicit business that is taking away billions of rand from the tax base. And a lot of work has been done with the support, with SARS working along with some of the tobacco companies that are really struggling to survive, because the illicit cigarettes have taken a huge market share in the economy. But it also speaks to the issue of law enforcement that is not able to deal with this illicit cigarette. There's been some of the proposals that have been made that the culprits are known and there should be measures to target those culprits. Some of them, they produce both legal and illegal cigarettes, and they are able to move those illegal cigarettes as they move out legal cigarettes. So the announcement to clamp down, I think, will actually help SARS to gain some of those tax revenue and hopefully improve efficiencies, because that's one area that perhaps few billions can be realized and be added to the fiscus.
All right, let's bring in now Dr. Lumkile Mondi, Wits School of Economics and Finance, to this conversation now. Dr. Mondi, thank you so much for your time. I wonder then for you, when in fact, we will have Dr. Mondi in just a moment, but Prof, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. And certainly, as you say, a lot of it is going to depend on coherence, and whether or not we are going to be seeing that, is one thing, and especially because it's an election year and it's anybody's guess as to what happens there. In fact, Professor Keith Angle, South African Institute of Taxation CEO, joining us there to give us his reaction to the Finance Minister's budget speech. Quite a lot of talk around this one, and especially you think about even some of the allocations that have now been made, additional allocations that have been made now to also municipalities to deal with some of the disasters that they have been faced with. For example, 1.4 billion rand for a disaster recovery grant that is now going to go towards municipalities in order to assist with issues around the damage that was caused during the flooding. And one also juxtaposes this against the delivery itself from these particular municipalities, because even in recent times, while we've seen the floods, damage and all of that, but we're also seeing some of the municipalities struggling to spend this money correctly and actually making sure that some of the damaged infrastructure is actually repaired. You see some of the, residents of different towns saying that they do not have water. So if there are such huge allocations that are being made towards the grants, what then becomes the actual translation on the ground towards service delivery? And I do understand that Dr. Lumkile Mondi from the Wits School of Economics and Finance joins us live now. Dr. Mondi, thank you so much for your time. I'll start with a question that I asked Sepo as well as Professor Angle when we began the conversation. This has been a budget that has been seen by some as an effort to try and be people-centric and also calm investors, calm South Africans, as well as, calm the markets as well. Did it strike the right chords?
Indeed, it did. And I think, again, it's great work that's been done through proper coordination within the Reserve Bank as well as Treasury by going into that contingency forex and gold reserves and taking about 150 billion to try and reduce that. So I think that action really indicates to us that the debt service cost over time are going to go down, as well as the ability of government to raise more funds to put back in the economy, particularly in the green industry, to ensure that the transition does take place. The court was struck very beautifully. Thank you.
And I wonder then, do you also share the sentiments that personal income tax, earners are going to then be breathing a sigh of relief, because you think about the fact that the bracket remaining unchanged, a lot of people were quite apprehensive and also nervous that things might change and we might see an increase here?
Well, in fact, I wanted the minister to take into account the cost of living. That we are now the net income that we're having buys less. Therefore, there's been some bracket creep at the bottom particularly, that there will be some movement there, even if it's done only for people who are earning particular levels of income at the bottom. The fact that it did nothing, I think basically those that are earning for 400,000 and above are benefiting from it.
Yeah, and I wonder then how much does it, go further when it comes to the allocation that we're now seeing going towards provinces to try and deal with the public sector wage bill? Would you say that those who are going to be benefiting from that then could breathe a sigh of relief, maybe from their vantage point, because they've also been constrained, given what we've seen, that increase not being implemented over a period of years?
Well, I mean, the government is trying to really make sure that in the next 3 months it's able to stay in power. So those require you to do what you need to do. And I think, as the minister at the beginning said, Sabuya was re-emphasizing that point that, given that we're able to satisfy our constituency, that we understand, and therefore we hope that they'll remember us on the 29th, and therefore we can be able to get over 50%. So there's a bit of that as well in the budget. And I think that's what I was trying to do there.
And Tsepo, I mean, one of the things that the minister talks about is the fact that the pie is not growing fast enough to be able to, assist government with some of its developmental priorities. And this pie that is not growing fast enough is not going away anytime soon. It's not a scenario that we are likely to not see going into the future. So then, what are some of the proposals to try and make sure that this pie is stretched and it's able to meet all individual needs?
Yeah, in fact, some of the proposal that government has been talking about to deal with this shrinking pie was to the reconfiguration of the government departments. We were told that there's going to be a plan, perhaps maybe the likes of the Department of Public Enterprises, that may not happen in the next administration. We may not have it. So maybe that's the plan, perhaps, if the ruling party, of course, retains its position, we could see a different spheres of levels of government. They are spending money to capacitate municipalities. We have seen that some of the conditional grants, for example, municipalities were not using those conditional grants, but there is a revision in terms of the allocation. They are still putting a little bit more of those conditional grants, particularly for infrastructure at municipal level. That could perhaps help. But I think, and I maintain that perhaps there's a need to look at the three layers of government, which is the national, provincial, and of course municipal, and the wastage that happen across. And we perhaps, it could be been a missed opportunity. The minister should, as indicated in the past, that government is working on that plan. And unfortunately, sometimes these announcements happen elsewhere, but they are not mentioned in any way where you expect perhaps more information would come out during the budget.
And Dr. Mondi, then finally, I mean, Tsepo mentions a very important point, and a lot of South Africans continue to decry this, that you talk about a shrinking pie, and yet wastage also continues exponentially.
Well, in response to that, I mean, government has got a national school of government led by Busani Mngcoweni, where we're building capacity and making sure that the state is capable. I'm really hoping that after the election, we'll tap on the knowledge that's being built by government itself, but also by institutions like ours, where we start filling those positions at local level, at provincial level, national level, with capable people. Because the issue in South Africa is not so much lack of skill to effect change people's lives. The issue is a political choice. And I think there's a lot of people who think that being in government is for them to eat. And that process, they frustrate all processes that could use the budget for development. So we put responsible people there. I'm hoping that all the people that are in the list will be people that have credibility so that we can get the country going forward. Our economy is much smaller than it was in 2014, and it's getting smaller every year that passes. It needs to go back and grow again. At this rate, we're unlikely to address the problems unless we really put people that are capable, we build state capacity, and in doing so, we're able to slowly go back to where we were in 2014.
And you even ask yourself if a lot of focus is also going towards the unemployment numbers that we saw just being released this week as well. And you think about the number of young people, Dr. Mondi, who are looking to this to see if anything can be done, about this. But let me thank you both for your time. And let's see then, as the 6th administration says, it's made strides and saying that there mustn't be pessimism and only optimism, but there must be a mix of both. But what happens then when the 7th administration comes in, as Sipho says? Is it a more of the same, or are we going to see some new policies being implemented? That is Dr. Lumkile Mondi, the Wits School of Economics and Finance, as well as our own economics editor, Sipho.